Thomas Hobbes, probably one of the most important political philosophers in human history, because he worked on the concept of sovereignty. Sovereignty is a concept that defines the existence of the state. So let's start this thinker, Thomas Hobbes. He was born in 1588 in England. Okay, we consider it, the founding father of the modern state somehow, as I said. So he was born in 1588. Let's look at the historical context because it's very important. So, he was born in a situation of war. He was scared. He was scared by war. His problem was war. So, he wrote this autobiography and he wrote, I was born afraid. I was born afraid. My mother brought twins to birth, myself and fear at the same time. Because there was the Anglo-Spanish War, the conflict between King Charles I and Parliament, which escalated into English Civil War, which becomes wrapped up in questions of religion. With the victory of the parliamentary force and the trial and the execution of Charles in 1649, the monarchy was abolished and the republic declared. But in effect, England fell under the military rule of Cromwell, and Hobbes escaped to France. Okay, then you have the Glorious Revolution. So let's say, when he was born, there was war, religious war between, he was born in England, there was religious war between England and Spanish. That Spanish is a very strong Catholic country. It was a very strong Catholic empire. It was a big empire because they conquered all South America. So he was born into this war. Then after the war, he saw civil war in his country because there was revolution against the king. The king was killed, and then they established a republic, but then the republic was defeated. So he lived through war and civil war. This is why he writes, I was born afraid. My mother brought twins to my birth, myself and fear. So fear is ever a keynote in Hobbes' political philosophy. So if you peace and order are supreme political goods and support a powerful state, because this can ensure peace. So let's say he grew up by seeing war. He grew up by seeing a lot of violence. So he saw that human beings are able and willing to produce a lot of violence, to wage war, to conflict. Okay? So this is why he started to think, how can we do to bring peace and social order? And so he made this theory of the state. The state as the institution which monopolizes all the use of force, all the use of coercion, all legitimate violence in order to remove violence from society. But we will see this later. So he was born to war, he was born in a situation of fear, and he wanted to fix this. So let's go to his political anthropology. We have seen that already in Machiavelli. We discussed political anthropology. What is political anthropology? Anthropology means the study of the human being, right? So political anthropology is, how the nature of the human being has consequences on politics. So the political nature of human beings, let's say. So, and for him, he had the negative anthropology. What does it mean to have negative anthropology? have negative anthropology means considering that human beings are selfish, self-interested, mean, cruel, ready to, dominate other human beings for their own satisfaction. So, for Hobbes, he says human beings are selfish, self-interested. They have desires and they aim at their satisfaction. Man is very rational, is egoist, is an egoist who first dead and want to survive and want to improve its own well-being, and so it's in permanent competition with other human beings, because sometimes you need the other people to have less for you to have more. So they want to maximize the resources, So what it was claimed, in early late Middle Ages, early modern Europe, you saw that when you were traveling, you were to be protected because everyone was assaulting you when you're going through the forest, this area not urbanized, you were assaulted, you need to bring arm to travel. When you go to sleep, everybody's looking at doors because you're scared that other human beings can get in and can rob you, So this is, the situation that Hobbes said, human beings are not good, human beings are bad, because they want the best for themselves, but to have the best for themselves, they need to take things from other human beings. They're ready to subordinate other human beings. They seek power, they seek resources. So, human beings are not good by nature, because they're selfish. They want a happy life and they're ready to do whatever. So, what does also says? Says human beings are mostly equal, in the sense that, there are differences. One is bigger, one is smaller, one is smarter, the other is less smart. But let's say, even if I have a stupid man who is like this, very short, he can always stab me with a knife here. So even the most stupid and small human beings can kill another human being with a knife. Right? So there is also this possibility of being killed. So there is this permanent conflict for power, for the resources, and so on. So he said that the first problem of politics should be considered as the preservation of our life against the situation of conflict. So this is the starting point. So what we see yesterday is that the theories of the social contract, contractarianism, has always two steps: the state of nature and the social contract. So first thing, all of them, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, they start by imagining an ideal situation, an ideal state of nature, which is human beings without government, human beings without political authority, human beings without coercion, without the state, without police, without the army, without bureaucracy, nothing. State of nature is human being abandoned in a situation where there is nothing. So there is also start to think the state of nature. Okay? What is the state of nature? It's the absence of political authority, absence of dominion, absence of any rules. There are no rules. So everybody is free to do whatever they want. Everybody has all the rights he wants. It's just everyone is totally sovereign. So this is, contractarianism, the state of nature. So let's say again this concept. In order to understand what is the legitimation of political authority, we imagine a situation in which there is no political authority. And we look for the conditions in which we would establish political authority. So let's say we do an experiment. Let's say we here in this class, we do an experiment, okay? We want to see under which condition we would establish political authority. Means we all this class, we take a flight, we get deported on a small island, like say Alicudi, small island, and from deserted island, nobody is here, so we live there. There is no rules, there are no rules, we can do whatever we want, okay, as a class, all together. We go there, we go a small island, we're there. That's the state of nature, because we have no rules, we can do whatever we want. There is no police, there is no state, there is no authority, there is nothing. We cannot go anywhere. So we're on in this island, all together, okay? All of us. So what would we do in that time? Would we establish a political authority, yes or not? Which kind of government would we establish? Under which condition we would accept to establish a government or a king or a sovereign? This is, how contractarianism works. He says, okay, let's imagine this imaginary situation. We all in class, we go there and we establish a ideal government. So, and then we sit down, we live there for a while. Probably there will be some of us who say, yeah, but the other students, they're very bad people, so they will steal things from me, so I want somebody protecting me. There will be another student who will say, no, but you're too negative. The other students, they are good, we don't need political authority because everyone is going to respect the others, I know they're all good guys, and so on. So this is political anthropology. This makes a big difference on if you want authority or not. If you think, if we're there in this island, just us, alone, and the first thing is, can I trust the others? Will they steal my resources? Will they attack me? Or everybody is good, so we don't need this big political authority. This makes a big difference on how you think politics. So, Hobbes imagines, let's say, we have Thomas Hobbes in this class, and they say, no, but if we're gonna get deported to, Alicudi, who knows Alicudi? Come on, guys, you're living in Messina, you don't know Alicudi. So, if you go to the other parts of Sis North, you drive 20 minutes, you get to Milazzo, then from Milazzo there is this small archipelago of islands called the Aeolian. Right, Kimberly, you know Alicudi, right? Yeah, so say yes. Okay, what is Alicudi, Kimberly?
It's an island.
Yeah.
It's a really tiny island.
What, really?
A really tiny island.
Yeah, so it's a really tiny island. I mean, it's if you swim like 30 minutes, you swim around. So let's imagine we go there, just the other part. So we go there and we live in this island. So what Hobbes says? Hobbes says if we go to this island, after a while, Nathan is gonna try to steal my wallet, I'm gonna try to rape a pretty looking girl, and he's gonna try, what's your name? Yeah.
Frankie.
Pardon?
Frankie.
Yeah, Baijin is gonna make, he's gonna try to make some of you work for him, and even is ready to enslave you, and so on and so forth. So, the bigger is gonna use his force to dominate the other. The professor is the most intelligent, so will trick you, in order for you to, be serving, and probably I will be staying there, and you serve me lunch and dinner, and I will take advantage of you. So what does he say, Hobbes? It's if you go there and you have no police, no authority, no rector, no director of the department, no rules, nothing, it's gonna be conflict. It's gonna be the war of all against all. It's gonna be a situation which he calls homo homini lupus. Each human being is gonna become the lupus of the other, trying to dominate, like it happens in the jungle, in which, it's the law of the jungle, in which the stronger the lion is gonna try to eat the gazelle. right? So it's homo homini lupus, a situation of war of all against all. So he said, let's imagine we're in the state of nature. In the state of nature, we all in Alikud is going to be this situation. Everybody's going to take advantage. Everybody's going to try to dominate the other. Everyone is going to take to maximize his power and his resources in, by that also by damaging sometimes the other. So it's a state of conflict. It's a state of conflict. Because first of all, you must be ready to defend yourself. So you must grow stronger. We have in Alicudi, in Alicudi you don't have that much resources because it's a big dry island. So there is a few grapes and we all want to get these grapes. There is few fish, and so everybody wants to fish, but maybe I don't know how to fish, Nathan knows how to fish, so I have to find a way to steal the fish from Nathan. So we are egoists. Negative anthropology, there is egoism. Everybody thinks of themselves. So because of egoism, there is this state of conflict. So, state of nature. So, try to understand what this contractarian is. We imagine a situation in which there is no law. There is a situation in which we all get deported to a small island. That's the state of nature. No law, everybody does whatever they want. Hobbes thinks the state of nature is better. So in order to end this war and to be sure, we sign a social contract. We decided to establish an authority by signing a social contract. So, it's situation of chaos. So we sign a social contract to establish a government because we say, yeah, we need a government in order to survive, in order to ensure our life, So we understand that we must, sign a social contract. So how does it work, the social contract, according to Hobbes? According to Hobbes, we have to decide that we give up some of our freedoms and rights. So within Alicudi, there is this, we're stabbing each other and blah, 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 blah. After we have killed some people, maybe Maki is died, maybe Sabrina is died, we say, no, maybe, what's her name, Chucky, what? Nadir? Nehir, yeah. So Nehir died, unfortunately, and Janara also dead. So after a while we say, okay guys, let's be honest, we cannot keep doing like this. So if everybody can do whatever we want, we already lost at least 4 people, we have to find a way to stop this conflict. The only way to stop this conflict is to establish an authority. And to establish this authority, we must decide that, we give up some of our rights and our freedoms and in order to give it to the authority. So, we sign the social contract. We decide to sign a sort of ideal social contract, and in this contract we write, each of us write, I authorize and give up my rights of governing myself to this man or assembly of men on this condition, that you too give up your right to this sovereign, let's say, and authorize his action in like manner. So I say, I give up, from that moment in Alicudi, each of us is free, no rules, we can do whatever you want, but we see that there is a conflict. So in order to stop this conflict, we all decide that I give some rights. I give the right to govern myself to a sovereign. This sovereign can be a monarch, or can be an assembly of people, can be the government, can be one person, can be more persons, let's say. To this political authority, I give up my rights, but only if you do the same, so I'm sure you're not going to kill me. So, This is the point. And so there is this mutual transferring of rights. Because he sees this, the only way to provide social order is to give up some rights, to give up some freedom to a strong, powerful government, So somehow I sign a contract and they say, yeah, you have the power, and now you can exercise this power. So let's read Hobbes. But as a man, for attaining of peace and conservation of the self, the rabbis have made an artificial man, which we call commonwealth. So also have they made artificial chains, called civil laws. So we establish this sovereign, which is an artificial man, and which has metaphoric chains, which are the laws, which themselves by mutual covenants and fastened at one end to the lips of that man, or assembly to whom they have given the sovereign power, and the other or their own ears. So we establish this collective agent. Let's see the collective agent. So Hobbes writes this book, which is a very famous book, the Leviathan. The Leviathan, this is the cover of the book. It's a very important book. So this was the cover. As you see, you have this, we created an artificial man. An artificial man. This artificial man is the state, will be the state. Is a sovereign. Is somebody who is a government who has sovereign power. So this state, this is huge. Represented as huge, it's much bigger than the city, it's much bigger than the mountains, it's huge, has a lot of power, and has a sword in his hand because he can do whatever he wants. But you see that who's making up this sovereign? All the single citizens, because the citizens have agreed to give him all this power, So this is new, because you see that is the people, by signing this contract, who gives the power to the Leviathan, to the sovereign. So it's not anymore coming from God, but it's coming from the bottom up, from the people who sign this imaginary social contract and gives all the power to this person. Because without the sovereign, you live in a condition of war. Everyone against everyone. So in order to end this condition of war of everyone against everyone, you need to establish this sovereign, this Leviathan, this book of Leviathan, right? It's very important. So let's see again. We have state of nature. State of nature means life without authority. Is a state of war of all, everyone against everyone. Since we already lost 4 students in the state of war of everyone against everyone, we sign a contract. This contract of government we renounce to all the power to this, sometimes he calls assembly, sometimes he calls sovereign, but let's imagine it's the government, which gives shape to the sovereign power. Okay, and we become subject to this power. So, the covenant is, as we say, is the sovereign contract is, I authorize and give up my rights of governing myself to this man or assembly of men, on this condition, that you give up to your right to him, to this government, and authorize all his action in like manners, This is how the state works. The state works that there are rules established by the government. You have to obey these rules. but you agree to obey these rules because you consider yourself as a citizen part of this state. You know, if any of you, if you break the rule, it's legitimate that the police come and take you and bring you to prison, because we consider that we have, gave the power to this legitimate political authority. So, in general, we think that when you break the rules, it's right that you get some form of sanction. You get some form of sanction, which is, the sanction is given by the state, because the state is powerful. The state has, is so powerful that is able to chase you whenever you break the law and to make you pay and to give you a sanction and to use its own coercion. So, what is the point? Is that by giving up our rights to a social contract, we establish a very strong power, which is the power of the state. And Hobbes calls the power of the state through the concept of sovereignty. Sovereignty. It's the power of the state. Sovereignty defines a state in the sense that the state has sovereignty because there are no other powers above this power. Sovereignty defines the power of a state, which means there is no other powers above this power. Okay? So, sovereignty means that this power can legitimately use coercion when you broke the laws. We, through the social contract, we give the monopoly of coercion to the state. When you have two sovereign powers which are conflicting, what's happening? War. War is when you have two sovereign powers conflicting to each other. And then you have war. And then you have war. But within a state which has sovereign power, you know that this state has the monopoly of coercion, the monopoly of legitimate violence, let's say, of legitimate violence. What is a state? The state is a political organization who gain the monopoly of legitimate violence. What does it mean? What does it mean? The only one who can exercise power is the state authority. Okay? So what is the idea by Hobbes? The idea of Hobbes is, if we live in the state of nature, if we don't have political authority, if you don't have political power, it's gonna be war, it's gonna be violence, it's gonna be homo homini lupus, it's gonna be conflict. Okay, so without power, we have state of conflict. This is why we need power for peace, for social order, for self-preservation. So he was born afraid. So it was, his main idea is how to preserve, how to save yourself, how to save your life, how to preserve your life. The first value for him is to save your life. And without political authority, you don't have it. So the first thing that political authority must do is to legitimate, to monopolize the use of violence in order to make it a legitimate use of violence through coercion, in order to ensure that nobody else can use violence. The only way to avoid violence is to monopolize violence into the force of the state in order to avoid violence. So you need to establish a powerful sovereign, which can exercise, the coercion, the monopoly of coercion. So, you see that with Hobbes, violence is the origin and the goal of politics. Why? Because we need to establish the state in order to not have social violence, in order not to have to eliminate interhuman violence. We need to establish the state because otherwise he can get up and kill the professor. But now it doesn't do it. Even if I humiliate you, Nathan, and do the worst thing to you, you cannot kill me because police will gonna arrive, right? So if there was a different situation, after a while I humiliating Nathan, and saying the worst thing against Nathan, and he's gonna kill me, he's gonna stab me. So there is always this possibility. How can we fix it? We have to give, we have to establish a power which is so powerful that we're sure that if he does it, police is gonna arrive, is gonna keep him, and is gonna kidnap him in jail. So you have, in order to eliminate the problem of violence, the risk of violence, you need to give all the right to violence to only one person. This person is called the state, the Leviathan. Who is the state? Who becomes the state when it gets monopoly of legitimate violence. Right? So this is how the state was born. When you have an organization, a political organization of people who somehow reach to get the monopoly of legitimate violence. Right? So this is, the state needs the monopoly of legitimate violence. The problem with organized crime is that they want to exercise regularly some kind of violence, some kind of social control. So you have, criminal organization. The state cannot accept that you have other people who wants to, exercise regularly coercion and violence and control over the territory, because otherwise there is not any more state. The state will be the only one who has the monopoly of coercion. The mafia was a big problem, because somehow it's an organization who control the territory through coercion. They have to obey the rules of the mafia, otherwise they're gonna beat them. And this is a big problem, it's a big issue for the state. So right now, for example, what happened in Mexico? In Mexico, they arrested the biggest narcos, the boss of the Mexican mafia. What did the Mexican mafia did? When they arrested, they attacked. They started to do, to burn up things and to do a kind of civil war to say, no, guys, it's, we're also a powerful organization. You cannot do this. So the state is an organization who can guarantee that it uses violence if it's needed to control the territory, to make the law respected. When a state is not anymore able to do this, is not a state anymore. So the first attribute of the state is that the state can reach the monopoly of legitimate violence over a territory in order for the laws to be respected. And this kind of power is called sovereignty, because there are no other powers above this power. So, sovereignty, it's the concept that goes together with the idea of the state. Sovereignty is absolute. There is no power bigger than it. It's indivisible. Power is one by its nature. If two powers emerge, who is going to decide between them? So like, for example, let's imagine a situation in which you have a sovereign power, and this sovereign power it's contested. What's gonna happen? What is this situation of the sovereign power when there is some other, like, for example, let's say I am the professor, I'm the sovereign over this class. Okay, if one of you is gonna shout, is gonna swear, you have my guards, go and gonna beat him. So I'm the sovereign, because I make the laws respected, because I can be sure that I have some kind of sanction, fiscal sanction against it. But one day maybe you're gonna say, okay, no, we don't like professor, we don't like his sovereignty, we don't like his rules. So you start shouting. my guards, they arrive, but you fight back. You fight back. So more guards are gonna arrive, you fight back, and this, put my sovereignty in question. So when you have people, not recognizing anymore sovereignty, you have a kind of civil war. And when the civil war is gonna overthrow my power and sovereignty, this is a revolution. Revolution means, revolution happens when you have another force, who is organized, who can exercise violence and fight against the army of the sovereign and probably overcome it. So sovereignty is absolute, is indivisible, is incommunicable, inseparable, unlimited. So states have sovereignty over their territory. This is a big thing, because sovereign states, they usually can do whatever they want over their territory. This is why we invented human rights, to say, yeah, we're sovereign, but there is something you could not do. But not all states are respecting human rights. And what can we do over a sovereign power like let's say, Taliban in Afghanistan? We consider they're not very much respecting the human rights, so there was many interventions. The United States invaded Afghanistan and tried to establish a new sovereign power which was based on different rules and on respecting human rights. But then there was war. Taliban showed that they were able to control the territory and to exercise more violence than the others, and then sovereignty right now is on Taliban. They don't respect human rights, but they cannot do anything because over their territory they are sovereign. It is a sovereign government. So it's the supreme power. Each state has sovereignty and exercise over their territory. Then can be different rules according to which you exercise sovereignty. But sometimes, states decide to exercise sovereignty in a despotic way, and there is nothing you can do because this is a sovereign power. If there is a conflict between two sovereign powers, usually that's war. That's war, because if you think of the different states, we have 180 states, I don't remember, something like this. We have 180 states in the planet Earth. These states, we try to establish a kind of sovereign power like United Nations and United Nations and international law, but these are not sovereign power. Sovereignty remains the state. So the states live among them in the state of nature, meaning if there is a conflict, there is a war, meaning that if there is a disagreement, they decide who has the biggest army is gonna probably impose its own law, its own decision. Okay, so this is the situation. Sovereignty. A state is a state because it has sovereignty, because over their territory they exercise the monopoly of legitimate violence, because they have enough force of coercion to be sure that the laws of the state are respected. Because if you break the rule, you can reasonably expect that you will pay for it, that the state will, exercise a force that will be able to make you a sanction if you break the laws. And, a state is a state until it can exercise this kind of power. It can be sure that its laws are respected because it has a force of coercion. This was invented by Thomas Hobbes, this scheme in which you imagine a situation in which there is violence, and in order to avoid this violence, you create a sovereign, a Leviathan, who monopolizes all the violence, all legitimate violence, all coercion, in order to eliminate violence from the human relations, from society, in order to ensure social order. So, fear to violence, death is the main force that feeds the organization and preservation of the Leviathan. Hobbes deduces the need for Leviathan and sovereignty from human nature. So obedience towards the sovereign is both rational and convenient for all of us. So let's say Hobbes is a theorist that wants to build up this concept of sovereignty. The legacy of Hobbes that we still have nowadays is this concept of sovereignty. It deduces from human nature because, as we stated, Hobbes has negative anthropology, meaning he thinks that human beings are bad, and if they are free, they're gonna hurt each other. This is negative anthropology, thinking that human beings are bad. So this is massive political implications, because if you think that human beings are bad, you think that you need a strong power to keep control, you need strong coercion, you know? So this is more or less what we see as, right-wing thinking. Right-wing thinking is, people say we need law and order, because if we don't have law and order, it's going to be a mess, because if you leave people free, they're going to make it a mess. So, it's the idea, right-wing is negative anthropology. We need more police, we need more jails, because of negative anthropology, because human beings are too selfish to self-govern themselves. This is usually right-wing thinking. Left-wing thinking, as we will see with Rousseau, is positive anthropology, meaning human beings, they're not that bad. It's society that makes damage, because through inequality, through private property, through alienation, through bad education, and through unequal opportunities, some people doesn't have the opportunity to develop themselves, but if you give the opportunity, they will be good, because human beings are good. So you have to give them good education, you have to give them rights, you have to give them equal opportunities, and everything is going to work well. So this is, positive anthropology, left-wing thinking, in which is not by having a strong power that you fix the problem. Right-wing, human beings are pretty bad, so you need law and order. You need a strong power. You need a strong power. So this is Hobbes thinking. So, what is freedom under this situation, under this theory? So, we are all together. Let's really get back to the state of nature. We're in the state of nature. Everybody does whatever he or she wants. Then we have total freedom. We can do whatever we want. Then we give up some freedom, we give up some rights to establish the sovereign, to establish the Leviathan, the government, the political authority. So freedom is what remains outside of this. You're free to do whatever you want when there is not a law that say you cannot do this. So this is the classical concept of freedom. You can do whatever you want until there is no law that is forbidding you to do this. This concept, we call it negative freedom. We call it negative freedom because we consider that we're free when the law shuts up, when the government does not intervene. We think that we're free when there is not the jurisdiction, legal laws that forbid us to do what we want to do. So, negative freedom says you're free to do whatever we want when there is an absence of laws. When there is an absence of laws. So, the subject is free to do what he or she wants when the law is absent or is silent. So, entering the social contract for Hobbes implies a restriction of liberty. But this liberty, this freedom remains when the government is not saying, no, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, you cannot do this. Okay? So liberty, Hobbes writes, is the absence of external impediments. This might take the form of physical obstacles, moral obstacles, or rules. Rules. When there are no rules, I'm free to do whatever I want. So freedom is absence of rules that forbid me to do things. This is negative because it's only the absence of rules that makes me free. This is why it's negative freedom. Then through Rousseau, we will see the concept of positive freedom. But negative freedom is the absence of law that allows me to do whatever I want. Okay? So, we understand that the theories of the social contract try to understand the source of legitimacy of political authority. Try to say how we legitimize political authority. What is the origin of political authority? For Thomas Hobbes, the origin of political authority is the problem of violence, is the situation that we would have in the state of nature, which is conflict of all against all. So, the origin of political authority lies in the nature of human beings, which is negative anthropology. Human beings can be very bad. Human beings can always do violence to each other, can always organize to do violence. So the origin of the political authority of the state is to protect us from the other human beings, is to protect us from violence. The origin of the state for Hobbes is the need to self-preservation, is the need to have a power that protects us. This is the origin of the political authorities, protection. I protect you, so you must do whatever I say. I protect you, so you must respect my laws. So the origin of the legitimation of the state is this need to protect us from violence. How do we do this? We, through a social contract, we establish a sovereign power that monopolizes all the use of the force, all the legitimate violence. So the state can do what we cannot do in terms of violence. I cannot punch you in the face, the state can punch you in the face. I cannot kidnap you, the state can put you in jail. Okay? So the state can use a certain level of violence that is legitimate. So this was, the theory of Hobbes.